Get into the bowl season, the Heisman here. Congratulations, Baker Mayfield. But the college football playoff, there are significant parallels with our neighbor from the north. They do have college football. It is a feeder system into the CFL. They have all of the rules for pay-per-play and eligibility, but a few less zeros attached to it, and it is an incredibly interesting perspective as we get into the American Bowl season. We'll cover a lot of that next week to have the Canadian perspective. CEO of U Sports, Graham Brown. You know about the NCAA, and you know about Power 5 and pay-for-play and all of the teams and the BCS rankings and all of that, but I've got better story for you, because we talk about how governance is difficult at the NCAA level. Well, this isn't the NCAA, but it is national governance. It's Graham Brown, who is the president of U Sports and basically governs all of college sports in Canada. Is that correct?
Yep, all 56 universities, so not quite as big as our colleagues south of the border.
Nobody says it's as big. Somebody says it's maybe more efficient, so thank you for being here.
Thank you, no problem.
Appreciate it. So give us a little bit of history about U Sports and how this whole organization came to be.
Yeah, so I mean, it's well over 100 years old. I mean, not unlike our colleagues south of the border. Over a number of years, it's taken on various structural and names. So a number of years ago it was CIAU, Canadian Inter-University Athletic Union. Then it went to CIS, Canadian Inter-University Sport, and now it's U Sports. U Sports is really, I've been on in the president and CEO role for 2 years, was really down to translation. And in Canada we're bilingual, so CIAUU was not necessarily bilingual. CIS was SIC, so if you put them together it was CSIC. You can imagine how that works in a country from east to west. So now U Sport is fully bilingual, U Sport and U Sport. So it's easier to build a brand in one language.
Staff, budget, just give us kind of an elevator speech about how you operate.
Yeah, we have about 18 full-time staff at our national office. Our budget is less than $10 million, so it's not significant. I think part of my vision would be to grow university sports. So we've for many years and for a lot of years, I suppose, have been just delivering sport, not trying to market it. Certainly haven't commercialized it in any way. That's not good, bad, or indifferent. But we have scholarships now. Yeah. That's new in the last 7 years.
For all sports?
It's depending upon the school, but to some degree, there are scholarships for sports that are part of the U Sport. So we have 23 national championships, but there are 42 sports competed for. So if you're not a national championship sport or a U sport, then there's generally not scholarships for it.
So how do you grow the game? I mean, how do you grow your organization? The NCAA, television contracts, Supreme Court restructured, contracts still drive it, but that's more at the conference level than it is at the national structure level. So how do you grow it nationally?
Well, we grow it nationally just by being a little bit more aggressive in how we're doing it. And when I say that is a lot of our schools are very sophisticated. I mean, we've got incredible facilities on campus. Yeah. We have full-time coaching staff. We have very bright athletic directors. We have very bright athletics department staff. But they haven't actually gotten together and collaborated. So we have 4 conferences, and they all worked very independently, independent rules and regulations. And in the last 5 years, there's been a real impetus to bring all of them together, to collaborate more, to work together. And part of my coming on board was the result of a governance change. So no longer do 56 athletic directors govern the association. There's 8, and 1 outside.
So that's an executive committee?
That's essentially an executive committee. That's right. And that was a huge change, because now on that executive committee sit 5 presidents. So before you only had the athletic directors. Now you've got presidents, a bit more influence, but also in the last 2 years there's been over $1 billion of facility builds on our campuses. So that's a little more serious to the president now, suggesting if we're going to have these new gyms and football fields and stadiums, we got to have some people in there.
A lot more zeros, and by the way, that's why they hired a guy of substance. Obviously, it's very important, right?
Yeah.
So, besides the obvious differences in scale and zeros, what are the biggest similarities between you guys and your friends south of the border?
Well, I mean, the NCAA, so I won't describe it, but you have over 1,200. I would say that we're more designed around your NCAA Division II, not your Division III, which are have a strong percentage are private institutions. We only have one private institution in our 56 members, Trinity Western University in BC. So the rest of them are all public institutions, which is very similar to your NCAA Division II. Probably align on values and principles like your Division II. We give some scholarship. We have schools though that operate programs that would be Division I mentality. So we have a Carleton University basketball, for example, Laval football, and I can go on, but McMaster volleyball just beat Ohio State, who were your NCAA champions, and beat them 3 straight. The reality, though, is we will never be a Power 5 type model here. We just won't, because we can't, and two, that model is as close to professional sport as you could possibly get. So I really think the values and what we're trying to build aligns with your Division II, and also around just hiring coaches. So a number of our coaches now are paid to coach, and that's a change. Before they would be paid to coach and teach. So a lot of our coaches were in the faculty of phys ed or human kinetics, and they were teaching a course. Now I'd say 80% of our full-time coaches are paid to coach, and that's a big change that's going to improve how we deliver our sports. I
heard you before, and I know you have good relationships with Oliver Luck and the people at the NCAA. Do you follow some of the major controversial issues the NCAA has and says, boy, I'm really glad this doesn't happen to us, or we've got to deal with this pay for play, for example, one and done? I mean, all of those issues. What's the thought?
Well, we happened to be with Oliver and his team when the basketball was going down in Indianapolis 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, and Oliver was certainly good enough to continue to meet with us and have his staff meet with us. But we have similar challenges. We're going through one of them right now with our football team. We have a possible ineligible player. I think the difference in Canada, where the eligibility book in the NCAA, for example, is 200 pages, ours is 10, and ours is really predicated on university integrity. A lot of it is policed at the university level, even to the point that our audit process is a self-audit by the university to determine. Now,
I'll save you time. Never happened in the States.
Yeah. So, now it may not happen, but it might at Division II and Division III.
Fair.
So I think it might not happen in your Power 5 or your NCAA Division I. But I think that's just the scale of the programs in the schools. But
some would argue also that a 12-page set of regulations based on integrity is better than 250 pages.
Well, and I'm going to fight hard to keep that philosophy. I think there's things we can improve on ours, and there are certainly areas that we can clean up with ambiguities and whatnot, but I think where we're being successful is that the basis of everything we do is integrity. And it's also why when we find out there's something wrong, there's really it's the court of public opinion will be worse than the sanctions. Because when everybody's supposed to be operating in that collegial manner culturally with integrity built into it, it's a different model.
Just a policy issue, and this is not a legal opinion I'm asking you to give, but when you see the O'Bannon courts and we talk about a commitment of dollars that are generated for a university somewhat on behalf of a player, and the player has some rights to that, how do you feel broadly about that?
Yeah, I probably don't have a perspective because I could debate either side of that. I mean, it's no different. We have the same challenges in Canada with CHL hockey players. The young players, many of them will go into their draft year this year and they'll all be signing, multi-million-dollar NHL entry-level contracts yet, and there's a debate whether they're professional athletes or amateur right now. Same in the universities. I mean, I think you have to apply the philosophy of dispersion of, is every school able to do that, or is there only some? Well, of course, there's only some schools that would fall into that because there are a number of schools and programs that don't have any revenue models. And then is it by sport? I was surprised at the NCAA when we were there that 80% of the $1 billion annual turnover at the NCAA is generated off basketball. 80% of $1 billion by one sport. That I just couldn't believe that when I saw it. But when you ask them and you see the television numbers and the game and everything else, you say, geez, I get it now. And so there's about 28 or 30 or whatever other sports don't make any money.
You see a kid like R.J. Barrett, and by the way, full disclosure, I'm a Duke parent, so God bless R.J. Barrett. But when you see a kid like that who was the #1 player in Canada, clearly signed with Duke, how does that make you feel?
I think that's great, and I'll say this in football: if you've got an athlete in Canada who can go play in a Power 5 school, we should fundraise for that athlete to go and have that experience, because we can't give that experience anywhere in Canada, and you will not find anywhere in Canada to give RJ the experiences he's going to have at Duke University. We can send him to our best school and Carleton University, and he'll be well coached and he'll have a great experience. He will not have the experience he'll have at Duke University.
Are you at the table when the leagues and the NCAA get together and the players, because it's a three-headed stool here, if to mix metaphors about collective bargaining? They talk about player eligibility and one and done, and when NFL and NBA kids become eligible. You have a different set of considerations, but are you at the table?
We are, absolutely, unequivocally, and our closest one truly is really CFL. So we have a Canadian content rule in CFL, but more importantly, we have a large number, 3 rounds of young people who will be drafted into the CFL. Likely will make it to the CFL, and have the same regulations that govern them, when they can play, how long they could be in camp, and whatnot. We have a different model for hockey. So the majority, our hockey players who at 15 and 16 decide to play CHL hockey aren't eligible for NCAA, because NCAA have determined that they're now professional hockey players. We don't determine that, and we welcome, and 90% of our hockey players in Canada at our 34 institutions that play men's hockey are ex-CHL hockey players. We just don't see it the same way, but we also have the ability, if you played in the AHL, to come and play university hockey too, unimpeded.
You could probably argue, based on this, that the broad business principles that govern sports south of the border, you have to deal with on a regular basis as it relates to your business principles and business day.
We do. It's very similar. There's no question. Like I said, I think it's just south of the border. Your sport, the NCAA sport, certainly at Division I, certainly in use the Power 5 reference. We don't have anything close to that in terms of, there's nothing. So we don't have that level. But in terms of running sport, our campus budgets, our programs, when you add facilities, some of our athletic directors are overseeing facilities. They're overseeing the athletic department, the campus recreation. U of T has 90,000 students. So, I would challenge that that's as big as any institution in the U.S. with as many complexities. The only difference is we don't put 50, 60,000 people into their football stadium every week.
It is the only difference. So project ahead, Graham Brown. Where are you, and where is this organization 5 years from now?
Well, I think my focus up until now is just making it more professional, making that mindset that it needs to be more professional, and so far that's been embraced collectively across the country. The next part then is making it more commercially viable within reason, but there's no commercial related to this sport or to this organization, and I think there's a real desire to bring corporate Canada in, work with them, to grow the sport, to reinvest that into television and into marketing and promotion. And I think if you can piece it all together, and I've had the opportunity to spend 2 years trying to do it, when we get traction, and we're getting traction right now, there's some news coming out in the next couple of weeks, I think then you're going to start to see university athletics. We have great athletes. And if you want to really go back to what drives what we do, we have fantastic athletes in this country. Bright, young, committed. If you heard me speak today, I call them high-performance athletes because they are. They're not amateur athletes. They're really, truly high-performance athletes. We had 156 Olympians that are in our network of universities at the last Olympics.
You need to be a little more passionate about what you do. Ladies and gentlemen, so a 12-page document for eligibility based on integrity, there's a novel concept. Graham Brown, I really hope you succeed.